Lesson 10. Satan's final deceptions.
Memory text. Sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. John 17:17. Following the deceptions against God's laws has led countless people to destruction, even though at first it seems harmless. They proclaim that Christians have no freedom, and cannot experience the pleasures of the world. If we look around, those pleasures have the opposite effect of freedom. People end up in hospitals, prisons, and morgues. The end-time deceptions will lead many to eternal destruction.
The way that seems right in a man's eyes. Mark 13:22. For false Christs and false prophets will rise and show signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. Jesus warns us that false prophets will arise. Ever since Jesus ascended into heaven, the earth has been full of them. With technology, these people flourish even more. Any world event is now used as a sign, but beware of false prophets. They change as the wind direction changes. Many do this to make money to keep their ministries alive. Crisis after crisis. They will tell you how it fits in Revelation. Then when the world moves on, they make excuses for their false predictions. The donations keep pouring in. We challenge you to ignore and not support these false prophets. There has been no real new crisis in the world. These false prophets want you to forget what they predicted would be the outcome of the last one. People are alive today who witnessed the Great Depression, the rise of Hitler, World War II, the chaos of the 1960s, the oil embargo, inflation, and more. The most deadliest hurricane to hit the United States happened well over 100 years ago. In 1970, an earthquake hit Peru and killed almost 70,000 people. Few remember, or even know. Many of you will remember the Y2K scare, the tragedy of 9/11, and many more events that would take hours to list. Revelation tells us not to fall for false prophets who keep latching onto world events that they themselves cannot predict. Revelation makes it clear that many will be deceived, even Christians, if that were possible. We see many Christians telling and believing falsehoods about the last major crisis, COVID. Then Russia invaded Ukraine and it became the big story. We forget how the Soviet Union rolled through Eastern Europe in the 1960s. The Berlin Wall is not even a memory. Jesus and Revelation are certain of the events that will matter. The world will experience supernatural events that have no explanation, and have never happened before. False prophets falling to Satan's deceptions are a powerful force. Proverbs 14:12. There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. The world is heading to a deadly, corrupt end. People will be convinced that they are right. The Bible has many stories of just such people. All were destroyed or taken into captivity. As Christians, we know the truth and must remember these examples. The more people listen to false prophets, and the crisis blows over, the more complacent people will become. If we do not study the Bible and seek the guidance of the Holy Spirit, we too will fall prey to the final deceptions.
The old lie of immortality. Revelation 16:13-14. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs coming out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. For they are spirits of demons, performing signs, which go out to the kings of the earth and of the whole world, to gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty. False doctrines are spread through spirits of demons. Deceptions of Babylon are embraced by the whole world. The lie of an immortal soul can be a detriment to the truth of the everlasting gospel. It gives a false sense of death, and is wrapped in spiritualism. Many well-meaning Christians do not realize this. Either being in hell or heaven, life after death in those respects give a sense of connection between life and death. How does this affect human thinking? If people are living in hell, then perhaps there are ways for the living to remove them or ease their suffering. Religious leaders can capitalize on this and come up with creative ways to make the living feel better. People perform works as payment for loved ones' sins, hoping to get them out of the depths of hell. They leave food and drink items at the graves as a way of helping them survive after death. Before you know it, Babylon has introduced the personal connection between the living and the dead. Ways of communicating deceive many. Interacting with dead loved ones in any way can make the gospel irrelevant. Many people claim to be spiritual with no connection to the living God. Beware of these false practices and teaching. They put humans in a position to save themselves and others by their good works. They negate the death of Jesus as our only means of salvation.
Babylon, the center of sun worship. The world has made gods out of nature, and gods related to the sun have been prolific through history. The first day of the week in Babylonia was dedicated to the sun god. The name Sunday actually comes from an Old English word used to mean the sun's day. Because of the pagan practices of worshipping the sun, God instructed his people to avoid anything and everything related to it. Ancient Israel was commanded to have the altar and most holy place to be oriented on the west end. That way, your back was to the sun when you approached. Facing the sun during worship would have been regarded as sun worship. Many of us know the history of going to church on Sunday. When Rome became aligned with the Christian Church, pagan practices were incorporated into it. Hence, Sunday worship would unite both. We have to be very careful when talking about what days of the week people consider holy. There is no version of the fourth commandment that uses the word worship. The fourth commandment does not say, "Thou shalt worship on Saturday," nor does it say, "Thou shalt not go to church on Sunday." A complete study of the Bible would lead a person to want to make the Sabbath a special day spent with the Lord in worship. However, as Adventists we never think about anyone else except other Christians. Remember, Revelation and the three angels' messages are for the entire world. As Islam grows to be the biggest religion in the world, we have to start acknowledging Friday worship. Friday is the holiest day of the week to almost 2 billion people. Today, apathy has hit Christians worldwide. As little as 1 in 5 Christians go to church weekly. It is not hard to imagine that more people are worshipping on Friday in a special way than those on Saturday and Sunday combined. Our thoughts should not be just on Sunday worship. Faithful worship and communion with God on the Sabbath is biblical. With the world ignoring this on all levels, we need to prepare ourselves to endure what will be a mounting persecution.
A call to faithfulness. Spiritual Babylon will create chaos across the globe. Nations and religions will unite as one to deceive humanity. This causes God's true church to be severely persecuted. The war against the followers of Jesus will be intense. Truth will be changed for lies. Revelation 14:12. Here is the patience of the saints, here are those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. When we look at that verse carefully, we see it does not say those who keep one commandment of God. It is a two-part statement. Those who keep the commandments, plural, and the faith of Jesus. It's not as simple as everything resting on one commandment. The fourth commandment points to creation, and we are called to worship our Creator. Along with people thinking Sunday is a holy day, beware that there are other abominations that go not only against creation, but against the commandments of God. Babylon is not going to allow you to worship only God. Babylon will make you kneel down to its image. Babylon already uses blasphemy. The world will keep none of the commandments. Churches and society as we speak are preaching against several. Adultery. We seem to have a very sinful attitude about divorce and remarriage. Coveting your neighbor's wife. We are told to do whatever feels good. Sadly, Adventists are divorcing so they can marry a newfound soulmate. Children are not being held responsible for obeying parents. The family unit is seldom united anymore. Our children have left the church, or refuse to attend. They do not have any need for parental guidance, and society tells them to rebel. Marriage at creation was one man, one woman. Anything else goes completely against creation. When it comes to buying and selling, look around you. What issues are causing businesses to be boycotted and shut down? Right this very minute, if you do not adhere to certain ideologies, you will be banned from certain commercial undertakings. You are hated and shamed for your Christian beliefs. The Sabbath will be very important at the end. We cannot lead people to believe that being in church on Sabbath will save you, if you are going against other laws of God. Babylon is a system that goes entirely against God. 100% against the laws of God. Are you willing to ignore 90%? Or will you stand firm entirely for God?
Grace for obedience. The woman clothed in scarlet and purple has covered the world in false religions. We think the world is a Christian world, and only Christian religion matters. 150 years ago, the early Adventist Church believed that most all in Revelation was done, and the mark of the beast was left. Almost 2 centuries later, we now live in a different world. We would be wise to take a look at the religions that actually control nations and peoples. It will put the state of the fourth commandment in a worldview of popular religions. 2.4 billion Christian, including all denominations. Only 22 million Adventists, 2 billion Islam, 1 billion Hindu, 500 million Buddhist, 400 million Chinese traditional, 300 million ethnic religion. Millions of others in other religions, with atheists numbering upwards of 750 million.
Revelation predicted that the entire world will be full of religions and powers that have no biblical basis. Revelation 18:4-5. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive of her plagues. For her sins have reached to heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. Talking about Sunday might make sense to a Christian, but 75% of the world is not Christian. Islam has Friday as its holy day. 1 billion Hindus have no weekly services whatsoever. The 3 angels of Revelation are calling us to proclaim the gospel to all the world. The message must be one that is relevant to the people who we proclaim it to. Sabbath keeping is not a means of salvation. It should be a natural act of obedience. As we remain faithful on the Sabbath doctrine, we also must grasp that the grace of God does not fall on us because of a physical act. Atheism is growing rapidly. Churches are emptying. A large percentage of people who join the Adventist Church do not stay. We cannot end up like the Pharisees who thanked God they were not like others, and were proud of all their religious deeds, including Sabbath keeping. Revelation is calling even us as a church out of Babylon. Human efforts at salvation by obedience is rejecting Jesus. We are to live Christ-like lives through our faith. Only this will deliver us out of Babylon. Let your walk with Jesus be your powerful witness. Be the one who helps guide people out of their own Babylon. Your Sabbath keeping should be on display to the world. Not boasting or bragging, but a true reflection of your faithful obedience to God. Surrender yourself to Jesus completely. This includes all of what Jesus taught, not just the Sabbath. When your life is on display before the throne of God, it will include all 7 days of a week. Are you living a holy, obedient life dedicated to Jesus.